We're hot.
So, are we ready to go?
I think we're on the count.
Oh, jeez.
They got your good side?
As you know, I have no good stuff. Before we start with the fun stuff, there's a social media policy that I'd like to talk to you about, maybe when bargaining's over.
Okay.
Okay, there's some, I don't know, you clearly didn't draft it, but maybe you can take a look at it. Maybe counsel your client. But you never know, the law changes in this area, right?
Yeah. I don't know, maybe I did try.
Right. You just pull these things out of your drawer and there it is.
I did. Sometimes I forget to change the name of the employer.
I have done that more than once. Well, anyway, first of all, I want to thank, but before we get going, let's talk about who's at the, just identify your names and introduce yourselves about who's at the bargaining table.
Bob Walker, Ayuba.
Jeremy Bertrand.
Sergeant Wallace Haynes.
Officer William.
Say that slower.
Officer William.
Okay, officer.
Officer Matt Harrison.
And as a former officer of the Volusia County Department of Corrections, I'll say lawyer and former officer Rich Sawicka. He's my paralegal since, you know, it's just helpful to have a paralegal. And can we, for my benefit, have the other side?
Sure.
Jennifer Gordon, Human Resources.
Joe Pozo, Public Protection.
Jeff Mandel, County Labor Attorney.
Tom Moats, Human Resources.
Charles Arville, Deputy County Attorney.
Mark Swanson, Public Protection.
Mark Flowers, Corrections Director.
All right, well, I just wanted to thank you for getting the day, this date. And I think it might be useful in terms of getting the show on the road, that we try, if it's possible on everybody's schedule, try to get a number of dates in, because it's going to take a number of days to get our contract. So think about maybe scheduling multiple dates at the same time.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that at all.
So our respective offices can initiate that?
Absolutely. No, my calendar's like yours. If we don't get it scheduled, everything fills up and there's no time. So I don't have a problem with going ahead and scheduling stuff.
Excellent. So I'll get Lily to talk to
Angie. Yeah.
Angie, it's a vaguely familiar name.
I was gonna say once or twice you've heard that.
So thanks for that. And here's the thing, and forgive me for bringing this up now, but I would like to, it will facilitate my ability to blab about things, to have a tour of the facility, because it's, when I worked for the county, we were just building the current facility. I worked in the land facility, which at the time had a 8th Amendment injunction against it by Judge Scott. And, but I it would make it easier for me to talk about some of the issues that everybody else, you know, it would just come right out of their mouths, but for me, so, I don't know how to schedule that. Any idea at your office? I mean, not that you, but I don't want, if you don't mind, I don't want the citizen one, but I want to have a tour with one or more union officers who may be able to say things like, let's go in the kitchen, or let's go here, you know what I'm saying? And there may be places that aren't appropriate, of course, for civilians, but that's the kind of tour I'm looking for. Anyway, talk about
Okay,
it,
we'll
and see
talk
if you
about-
can. And again, before we get to negotiations or trying to dip our toe into it today, I understand that there are some policy changes that are out there. Can you tell me where they are in the process? Can anybody tell
And
me?
the only one that I know that was still outstanding was the one on the dogs. And Bob had raised an issue with respect to the dogs.
Are there any other policies that are in the works? Could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything else that we had any outstanding issues. And the dogs are on hold right now.
Yeah, we definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah. What seems to be the issue?
I
know-
just, forgive me.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say is that I think, and I don't mean to put words in Bob's mouth, but I thought that the issue was is that there may be some folks out there that are allergic to dogs. And the concern was is that,
Oh, blame me for this. I
Right.
haven't even looked at it, other than I know
Okay.
that the whole concept.
Right.
I can imagine a bunch of little things,
Yeah.
some big things. But I thought there were some other, help me if I'm wrong on this, guys. Are there any other policies that you've heard of or in the,
Maybe, Jeff can talk, there may be something we may be coming up with.
okay.
Have that out, me and Jeff can talk about it.
okay, cool, cool. Good, that takes that.
Someone had mentioned instituting a sewing shop.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like just a whole, I got the impression there was like a whole revision of the existing policy manual that was floating around there.
We've changed the policy manual twice in the past.
Right, but there's nothing floating out new.
Well, you would know if,
Yeah, there's a few other changes, but I don't think they're substance, but I'll let you look at it.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into that.
thanks. So, I guess the next thing would be, do you have any contract proposals for us?
No, well, we were under the impression that you all had a contract that you were gonna be proposing to us today. That's the word that we had.
Well, we have some
Oh, okay.
proposals for you, but I was wondering if you had any for us.
No, we're happy as things currently stand.
So you are willing to sign an agreement today that locks in the status quo?
No, we're willing to keep the status quo of having no contract right now, if you'd like.
Oh, jeez.
But I don't know, give me proposals, I may very well be willing to lock in the status quo on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want anybody to walk away saying, oh, Jeff Mandel wants to change everything, that's not what I'm
Don't
suggesting.
personalize everything.
Come on, Rich, it's all about me, you know that.
So, okay, listen, if you don't have any today, there's nothing wrong with
Right.
that. There's nothing wrong with that. I was just wondering if you did. Okay, we have some proposals for you, but before I share them, I guess what I wondered, I wanted to give you sort of the background of at least what I'm thinking.
Okay.
And that is that you guys have put a lot of work into this deputies contract. You spent a lot of time negotiating that, I gather. So we're kind of using that.
Not really.
Not really, we didn't.
I negotiated the last one, it was what we did.
No,
was
the
that-
funny thing, we developed a year in advance.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I've done, just so you know, I'm gonna give you a package of 5 or 6 not overly radical things that are based on that contract. And what you're gonna see is strike-throughs and underlines, and that is a strike-through and underline to that contract. So you know where that came from. There's one or two things where I think I might have screwed up the PDF to Word, and that's what I'm intending to do here. So, if there are any other screw-ups, please point them out. But that's what we're sort of using as a baseline where it's sort of relevant to us. So I am going to see if we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just pass these down. All right, do we all, at least at the table, have a copy? All right. What I'd like to do is just go through these and touch on some of the things that we are throwing out there. Reserving the right to amend, supplement, blah, 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 as necessary.
You don't have to go there.
Yeah, well.
I mean, obviously.
All right, the first, and you can see it says Article 5 with a strike-through.
Right.
That's where that comes
Okay.
from in terms of the deputy, so it makes sense. Personnel records. And what we've done here is, in paragraph number 1, the big thing here is inserted the definition of a public record from the chapter 119.
Yes. So I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked the other one. Because,
This is a.
no, well, so what happened at the negotiating table, the last contract that we negotiated,
Mhm.
which was actually that had to be the first sheriff's contract that I've been involved in 15, 20 years. And the contract had a personal records article in it.
Yes.
And what I said to Holly and then to Ryan was, why do we even have this in the contract? Obviously, chapter 119 is public records law, says it's public record, you're entitled to it. Why are we putting things into the contract that's established law that I can't imagine has ever been an issue?
That's a fair question, and I'll tell you the reason I recommended this to the
Okay.
client. And that is because, particularly with law enforcement / quasi-law enforcement employees, you will see personnel or things that qualify as public records on cell phones, in file drawers that are in somebody's office that never really get picked up when somebody makes a public records act request. And it's easier for us to enforce that if that language is in the contract.
Sometimes it's a good thing that they don't pick up what's in the drawer.
I agree. No, I agree.
It works both
I
ways.
agree. And this is our proposal as things stand now, and I
Right.
think your observation is completely legitimate.
Right.
And and it's a legitimate point, and it may be something that the folks go, you know what? During the course of 3 months of negotiations, the employer's negotiator made one legitimate point, and it had to do with personnel records, and we're gonna withdraw that proposal. Nobody thought that was funny. Obviously. Anyway, the second change that we have, oh, by the way, back to the end of paragraph
Right.
1, it expands it to beyond the official personnel file. You see, that's the reason for that. See, we struck the phrase official personnel file.
Yeah, I didn't understand why the deputy's contract said personnel file as opposed to any public
Yeah.
record. None of it made sense to me at all.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there, It's something I think both parties have an interest in, because we both have parallel interests in the Public Record Act thingy.
Actually, and more often our interests are aligned when it
I
comes to
agree.
this stuff.
A lot of stuff. In paragraph 3, I just can't stand the phrase "in order." It's almost, if you take out "in order" from anything, the sentence reads the exact same way. So, that is not the hill we're gonna die on.
Right.
But you know what, when you're writing,
No.
it's just a writing thing. Now, bulletin boards, this is kind of a thing, a very important thing to the union, and I'd like to talk around it, but I want you to notice this weird sentence at the bottom that says the parties hereby agree that this provision shall be effective immediately upon it being tentatively agreed. And of course, if this was good English, it probably would say agreed to. And the reason I stuck that there is we would like to get a bulletin board up today, tomorrow, or soon. Now this refers to the existing bulletin boards. It doesn't say the union's bulletin boards, but we'd like to, expand this. We just want to get bulletin boards up so employees can see, for example, what's going on in negotiations, things like that. So let me go through it, but I just wanted to touch on that weird bolded language at the bottom, so you understand what the purpose of that is. We don't have to sign on this to, just tell us we can use bulletin boards today. Take a caucus, talk about it, and just tell us we can use bulletin boards with non-political stuff, and make sure the make sure the county sees what it is we'd like to put up before anything goes up. So we can just facilitate communications. But I use the word information because I thought notices was a little bit too constricting, and I added negotiation updates, grievance or litigation updates, and anything reasonably related to the union's role as the employees' labor organization. Again, all of this is subject to the county seeing it in advance, which is kind of a restriction that I don't like, but at the same time, this is a first contract. So that was the purpose of that. You can see where I struck phrases like chief deputy and things like that. That's the original point I was making. By the way, the word disparage is in it's highlighted in gray because when I was doing this, the word I don't know if it was originally disparages or something like that, so I just highlighted it so you can take a look at it and make sure that this was a direct PDF to Word transition, whatever. Because I'm trying to represent that contract with strike-throughs and underlines. Now, union business we're gonna have two pieces to union business.
So let me just
Oh,
go back for a second
forgive
on the issue of, you know, the addition of this prohibition no way applies to employees' right to engage in concerted activity or free speech.
Yes,
So doesn't that negate the prohibition against any material of political nature or disparaging elected officials?
it would if we didn't have the county having to rubber stamp it before it got put on the bulletin board. Any such notice shall be transmitted to the county, which shall arrange to qualify, oh, forgive me, it's up higher here. Yeah. A
Right, no,
copy shall
yeah.
be first transmitted prior to posting. And to the extent that's not built into it, I think that if there's an issue, and we could add this right now or after a caucus, that if you want to have some sort of explicit statement that if the county thinks that it goes beyond the permissible stuff, then they can stop it or prevent it. And then we could have a conversation.
Well, I guess I'm just concerned with putting this language in here.
The reason
Because it basically, because here's the what-if scenario, and for those who are attending negotiations for the first time, probably don't recognize that 90% of what we're gonna be talking about in negotiating this contract are things that probably will never come up in any of our lifetimes, but the contract is intended to cover every possibility, and that's why we end up sitting here talking about things that aren't likely to happen. And so what I'm trying to do is avoid a scenario under which somebody decides, okay, we're gonna post on IO bulletin board that all our members should support so-and-so for county council, which is prohibited in for all of the bulletin boards on all of the elected officials, for all of the unions, not only here, but pretty much everywhere. But if we put in here saying that prohibition shall no way apply to the employee's right to engage in concerted activity or free speech, are the individuals or the union going to turn around and say, well, wait a second, I understand that it says here you're not allowed to post these political issues or, you know, urging people to vote a certain way, but people have a free speech right to do so, so the free speech right negates the prohibition against that type of posting. And the last thing I want to do is end up going to arbitration over things like this. Because as you know, when the parties are in disagreement as to what the language means, you end up having to spend money to go to an arbitrator to tell you what it means.
Those are legitimate concerns. I guess the reason that is in there because I default to what the law is about limitations on communications that are protected concerted activity. If you want to make a counter proposal today, I really would like to get this thing done today. I think we can get this thing done today. If you want to strike that and make otherwise revise this, we're ready to rock and roll on it. I think you're making some good points. And while you do that, I do want to address, it took me about 10 seconds, your social media policy, which is clearly an unfair labor practice. I know, you didn't write it.
I don't have it, so it's not.
I don't know, maybe.
It's not in front of me. I don't know. Maybe I did. You know?
But by the way, let me finish that by saying,
Okay.
whoop-de-doo. Let me just say, I don't mean that to be some, oh my God, you know, the world is falling. In fact, I take those words back. I think it could have been written in a different way. But I'm looking at this thing, and then who knows, maybe it's not even the current policy. Here, let me show you that. I think I have, yeah.
2013.
That violates the Orange County firefighters case, which my partner litigated. I can't resist saying it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We'll see.
When did that case come out?
it. Actually,
Jeez.
that's been a few years back.
It's been a few years, yeah. But here's the thing. PERC followed the board law, but the board law has changed a little bit. But PERC will be too blockheaded to go back and say, oh, we need to adjust our position. But anyway, it clearly prohibits stuff that you guys are able to say about your employer. You know, it's like a God-given right that you can complain about your employer, or your lawyer. Feel free. Or the county's lawyer.
People never say anything bad about me.
But anyway, can you take a look at that? That concerns me.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
Can we make a copy of this?
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
Because, anyway,
All right.
during the forthcoming caucus, anticipated caucus. The more I look at that sentence in the middle, I see that it might be problematic in the middle of Article,
Yeah.
struck through Article 8 under bulletin boards. But let's come out of here today if we can with something. The next one is union business. Paragraph 1. I just have utterly no idea why we have to have that sentence in there at the end of paragraph 1 about, we're supposed to tell you who our representatives are, because that can change in 10 seconds, you know.
Well, that's the issue, is that it sometimes does change in 10 seconds, and we don't know who is authorized to speak on behalf of the union. Because we get into, unfortunately, what ends up happening at times, we get into issues where somebody comes in and says, I'm here on behalf of the union, and they agree to something, and then we send out an email saying, okay, here's the resolution of it, and the union president turns around and says, I never authorized that person to come here. And that's the reason why we ask that, is to avoid those type of situations, which unfortunately happen.
But what about this? The employer wants to change a policy, and of course, the employer is obligated to give the union prior notice and opportunity to bargain over a policy that implicates mandatory subject to bargaining. So, the employer doesn't give the policy to a representative. You know, you're gonna say we don't have to give it to representatives, but doesn't give it to representatives. And this language here says we have representatives. So then the union complains saying we never got notice of it, and then we have one of those places.
Except that if the language in there says that the union is going to designate who their official representatives are, then this way, if we don't give it to the official representative, then our bad, because we've said we're gonna deal with the official representative, so.
Fabulous.
To me,
We
this
agree to
yeah.
put this back in
Yeah.
as long as notice obtains when an official representative gets the policy. But you don't want that.
Well, of course.
But you don't, of course, you don't want it, because you want to be able to argue that there was some sort of,
We've
okay,
never done
good.
that. We've never done that. We've always sent the notice over to, whether it's.
I love it.
Whether it's, I've sent the
No.
notices over to Ryan Byrne, we've sent them to, over to Gary Conroy, we've sent them to Bob. We normally send
That's
it to
cool.
the
I'll
right
tell you,
person.
that's how we've operated with them.
Yeah, we've always operated. that way.
That's, I guess I move at the speed of the slowest soldier. And believe me, there are plenty of people that would say, let's say, the union rep ran through a city council meeting when we were discussing this issue, and therefore was on notice of something that happened at the city council. I swear to God.
Yeah, we've never done
I'm
that.
serious.
Yeah, we've never done that. I mean, when it comes to IUPA, I was actually sending everything to Holly. Because now the general counsel, Holly got most one, so I wasn't even,
I know we're well.
right. So, I mean, I wasn't even going ahead and sending
We
it to the bargaining
withdraw
folks.
that.
Okay.
We withdraw that. Good. And of course, 2 and 3 are really self-explanatory. And the big one is paragraph 3. And we're not asking that to apply in these negotiations unless, you know, we need to get something finally done when, we're at the end and we may need to have multiple meetings in a row.
Right, understandable.
Yeah. Has everybody read it? Have a chance to read it? Temporary assignment to a higher classification. That does happen, as I've learned, more frequently than we might expect in this job. All this says is
So if I'm.
second for second.
So if I'm reading this, is that if they work in a higher class, they shall immediately receive the
Yes.
rate of the higher classification?
Not hour for hour, second for second. And also, I mean, it's performed the work of, I mean, it's designed to be kind of a provocative proposal.
So what's currently happening? So what's your,
30 calendar days.
okay, so you're doing it as, under the merit rules, the temporary assignment under the merit rules.
Which is kind of, I'm not gonna comment on that.
I think you already did. Understand.
Now, seniority is gonna be built into bits and pieces of our other proposals, but this is sort of a general characterization of what seniority is going to be used for. And we made it department seniority. And then we also defined classification seniority in 2. And 3. And then paragraph 4, we describe some of the limitations on seniority, 4A. B, and I have to tell you, I made this change, promotional or non-promotional vacancies. I did this without consulting with my client, so this, I think, works, but, you know, I just wanted to point that out, that may be a weakness. When it comes to transfers, seniority is going to be the primary consideration. Again, that's kind of a difference in kind. I mean, otherwise, we're tracking the language that appears in the sheriff's contract. And of course, we removed the language at the very end dealing with criminal justice standards and training, which has no bearing on this.
So you also took out the limiting the recall rights to 18 months. Is there any period of time under which the recall rights expire?
We're open to suggestions.
How about 18 months?
It's nice to get a proposal from
There
you.
you go. I think this is the first time you've ever gotten a proposal from me in the first session.
Yeah, I've already warned them.
Okay.
Now, insurance 20 is a biggie,
Okay.
and it's the last one from those today. And all we essentially did, well, there's 2 things that we did that are significant. Paragraph 1, paragraph 1, we make group health insurance and dental insurance what it presently is, as opposed to a parity clause vis-a-vis the general employees. I think we need to have some discussion about that. That may be, as a practical matter, something you're gonna have real difficulty with. I don't know. It may be something you can do without it being that big of a deal, but we want to lock into the contract the current benefits and the current costs, premiums. Paragraph 2 addresses an issue where prior to using disability, employees are being forced to utilize their, what is it, personnel leave?
Personnel leave, yes.
Yeah. Which is a real sticking point with people, as I understand. And it's just cheesy to force somebody to use that leave that they've earned.
Do you know what their maximum accrual is?
I know there are people walking around here with large American numbers.
I don't think you got any of their employers got that.
You know what? I tell you what, give me 20 employers and I'll give you 20 employers and we'll compare their contracts. I guess, yeah, and then the last part is the same thing, paragraph 3. It just specifically says, no use of leave. Now, I haven't read the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, which apparently they in fact, I know that includes the corrections folks. But apparently, because somebody handed it to me, I'm gonna represent to you that they have a lot of leave too. Does somebody know off the top of their head? But I urge you to take a look at it. In response to your question, yes, Seminole County. Where apparently we are training corrections officers to go to work for. By the way, I'm gonna make an information request. Do you have any exit interview stuff that you do when people leave and go elsewhere? You interviewed employees to see why they left? I guess that's an information request. If you have exit interview or other data about the reasons communicated by officers when they leave, who knows, it may be because they're retiring, it may be because they're going to work for another department. And related to that, I would make an information request for the estimated cost of training a new corrections officer. One, so they are not just training so they can work, and then I don't know if there's a division between being able to work and being able to work solo. Is there a difference, guys? I mean, if you...
You mean certified or pre-certified?
Yes, just certified, I guess, would be to get them to certification status. Is that a question that makes sense, that you can answer? I mean, not here today, I mean. In other words, do you have certified people who don't work by themselves, solo, in the facility? Yeah, I mean, I'm not
I know where you're
claiming-
coming from.
Yeah, I don't, I just wanna know, for obvious reasons, that we're training people and then they're going to work at other counties, for other counties. I mean, that's not a shock to you guys. You don't want that to continue to happen, I know that.
So have you all done a salary survey?
Have we?
Yeah.
I have something I haven't read. I have it sitting right here, but,
We get a copy once you review it?
well, it depends what it says.
Oh, okay. Fair.
I have a funny feeling it's not gonna say what you want it to say.
I don't want it to say anything other than to provide us the facts that I can take back to the elected officials and show them. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the facts are the facts, and it doesn't do me
No, I
any good
appreciate that.
to misrepresent them to anybody.
No, I appreciate that, and I know you mean that.
Yeah.
I do know you mean that. So, we are in October. So we are at we're at the beginning of a fiscal year. So it's kind of a useful time to be bargaining, really, good time to start bargaining, because we have a long way to go till the next wage increase.
And I guess the new council gets seated sometime in January.
Were there elections?
There
Were there,
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, open
Yeah, there are.
challenges?
Yeah, I think,
3 4 seats.
well, yeah.
3 seats.
3 seats
Three
were
seats.
open, one's already won countywide, the former sheriff, and then there's 2 that'll be decided Tuesday.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have a new group of elected officials to talk to and get direction from.
Delightful.
I don't know, seem like nice people.
I haven't,
Yeah.
yeah, I've, as far as Volusia County goes, I've been mostly dealing with the school board. I'll ask you when the cameras are off what that means.
All right, is there anything else we need to talk about at this point?
Can you, caucus and come back with us about
Yeah, we'll
a
go.
whole variety of things? Okay, good.
So importantly, where'd you get the shirt?
My daughter gave me for my birthday.
You got at least a couple of people sitting at the table that are very happy. Well, at least 3 people that love that shirt. Yes.
Just don't take it off.
Yeah.
Don't leave it laying
Yeah, I was
around.
gonna say, if you take it off, you're not gonna see it again. I'm gonna warn you right now.